Morning. I hope you're all well today. And you can probably tell by the screen around me here that it's a little bit of something different today. I'm being joined by somebody from America who's a YouTube creator, and he talks about electric vehicles and all things to do with them. So what we're going to do is welcome today Alex, who his channel is called E for Electric, and we're going to look at doing a two-part program. This is part one, and part two you're going to be able to find on his channel. So without further ado, Alex, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it. Great to be here and talk to somebody who is in the same, electric car industry and also a YouTuber. So, yeah, this is exciting.
Absolutely, and well, thank you for coming on. And yeah, I think it should be quite interesting today. We maybe look at the differences between what we have here in the UK and in America, and maybe just explore that a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm ready to find out what's going on over there and tell you about what's going on over here. I'm sure it's a little different. So, yeah, totally. Let's do this.
Fantastic. So you've had your channel for a good few years now, but can I take you back and ask you what got you into electric vehicles and how did you come about driving one yourself?
Yeah, this is a very odd story. Basically, it was back 2012, I think, the beginning of 2012. I was, shopping for a new car because my lease expiring on whatever car I was driving at that time, and I was having a hard time finding a car that would excite me. Everything seemed kind of stale. Every car had a technology. It was like I've seen around for like a decade. I was talking to a friend of mine, and his son at that time, he was like 11, said, "Hey, you should check out a Tesla." And I'm like, "Wait, is that like a Roadster for $250,000? That's a Lego, dude. No, I'm not. I don't want." He's like, "No, no, no. They actually have like this four-door sedan that's coming out." And I was like, "Well, is it still electric?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, thank you, but I'll pass." And then I think it was like the next day or next weekend, I was walking around a shopping center where Tesla opened one of their first showrooms, and they had a prototype there. And I walked in, I was like, all right, let's check this out. And as soon as I saw the car, I was like, oh my God, this is what the car should have been all along. And within like 10 minutes, I put down the deposit. And they weren't making them at that time. I had to wait for about a year, but I became one of the first 3,000 of Model S owners in the original 2012 year. I got it signed by Elon Musk. I mean, it was great. But then I realized my entire friends and family and everybody who heard about it thought I was a complete idiot because, one, I bought a car from unknown manufacturer, and like, when was the last time a new car manufacturer came on the market and didn't go bankrupt? And secondly, like, it's an electric car, this technology that Nissan Leaf has, and those are not cool. So I was like, all right, well, let me go and find other crazy, stupid people like me, and naturally I formed a Facebook group. And to my surprise, there were a lot of other crazy people who were buying the same car. Some for the reasons that I did. For example, I wanted to buy a car, so maybe that would lead for us not having to fight all these wars in the countries that hate us for this gas thing, right? I was embarrassed that we can fly people to the moon, we can make boobs look bigger and butts look smaller, but our transportation is still powered by this goo that we get out of the ground and blow up 1,000 times under the hood of our cars. Some people bought it because they wanted to protect the environment, or they like the tech. I found out there were a lot of them, and after a year or two, when Tesla started to become cool and electric cars became more acceptable, I realized that I have this 10 or 15,000 people in my group, and I should sort of provide some sort of service or sell some sort of product to them. And I was already dabbling with YouTube. I had this small channel about men's fashion and stuff like that. And I was like, that's what I should do, because I've been kind of behind on all the Tesla news. And I created a channel called Everything Tesla. And I was basically telling people once a week what the news about Tesla is. And but a year into it, and that was about 2 years ago, I've decided that Tesla is not the only thing that's happening now. Like, this is going to be a big revolution. There will be other brands that are, other androids to the iPhone that is Tesla right now. So I renamed my channel into E for Electric, so I can cover not just electric cars in general, but electric, bicycles, skateboards, helicopters, and so forth. And little by little, the channel grew, and at some point, I was able to make this my full-time job, and that's what I've been doing since July. So that's my weird journey.
That's your story. And do you know, if I'd realised that you had a channel about fashion, I might have made a bit more of an effort.
That's okay, man. No judgment. No judgment.
So from what I understand, you obviously you have one of the original Teslas, and incredible, the signature from Elon Musk and everything else. It must have been so exciting to take delivery of that car. But you haven't just had the one. Am I right in saying you've had three?
I am on my third one right now, and I have to say that's probably going to be the last one. Unfortunately, even though I still believe it's the best car in the world, I probably had one of the worst ownership experiences, right? It's different, a product and ownership experience. And I'm seeing what's going on with Tesla right now. You can even buy a new Tesla right now without maybe not knowing if you're going to lose 10, 20, up to $100,000 in China, right? Or this whole thing with the full self-driving feature, like it's a mess, and I would be literally afraid of getting a new Tesla. And I right now I'm a reservation holder for the Audi e-tron. It's not nearly as exciting or awesome, but I thought that with the build quality, the luxury, which I would prefer to still have, which Tesla doesn't really have, and just the customer service would be an upgrade to what I have right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's going to be a really interesting probably update from yourself when you do take delivery of that, because having driven Teslas for so long and then transferring that into a very recognized and well-known brand that is known for its quality, just to see what that difference is, and whether, as we often talk about, is Tesla that far behind with its build quality, or actually is this just one of these stories that we hear a lot about, and much more is made of it than there really should be?
Well, I think the build quality, the poor build quality that people are talking about is usually found in the first few months of production. And I think it gets better. I still don't think it's acceptable, but at least you know that. And if you want to be one of the first adopters, then then that's what you're gonna have to deal with. I'm also just not. See, overall, it's, to me, the interior of any Tesla cars is just not a luxury interior, right?
Okay.
And I've driven. I was lucky enough to have a good Silicon Valley, job for a while, so I always driven nicer luxury cars, and that was kind of step down from that. And if I go back to not to a legacy manufacturer like Audi, I would probably have that. But I do have to say I'm also a reservation holder for Byton. That's an upcoming, brand that has a factory already built in China. They're going to be building their first cars at the end of the year, and that car is extremely exciting. It has, I don't know if you've ever seen one. It has this huge screen on the top. Instead of the dashboard, it's like the entire dashboard is a screen, and I'm just like I'm blown away by how amazingly fast they've innovated their car. That like, for example, you don't have a key, you just have a face recognized, just like an iPhone would. The technology inside, the fact that this car will also start with only like $45,000, which is amazing here in the United States, because they're building it in China. They'll be probably one of the first ones to even bring the brand that's created in China to the United States. I can't be more excited about them. So I'm a reservation holder, and I'm hoping to be one of the first early adopters here in the United States as well.
Yeah, and you're right. It looks an absolutely incredible vehicle. And being a reservation holder, have you had any updates? Have you been given a clue about when perhaps it might be delivered?
Right. So what I know is I visited their factory in Nanjing only like in June, and I was basically, we were walking on dirt. And now they just showed us the pictures. It's a completely done factory. So they're on schedule, and the schedule is still to deliver the first cars in China at the end of this year in December. And then once they're ramping up the production, the deliveries in the United States and Europe will start a year later. So we're talking about late 2021. No, actually late 2020, early 2021, which is fine by me. And it looks like everything they promised in the beginning, the features of the car and the schedule has been met so far. has been incredible. I've never seen a car manufacturer just flourish this fast.
Yeah, and I think they've very much been eclipsed really by Tesla, haven't they? Because we hear all about what's going on there, and of course Elon Musk is very enigmatic. We see him everywhere, all over social media. They've just been quietly going about their business, and actually, as you said, a lot of the stuff they're doing is so much more advanced than anything Tesla are doing. And I think this boom in China, again, we hear about it an awful lot because the electric car take up there is so much greater than anywhere else. And what's it like in America? Certainly here in the UK, there's always a feeling that Chinese products are, certainly their cars are substandard. But I think we're starting to see a change in that opinion now. What's the opinion in America?
It's very similar, but I find it a little silly because everyone's got a phone, that's made in China, and everyone's just fine, and we're wearing clothes and everything else around us, made in China or made overseas in Asia, and we're just fine. The fear is that the Chinese regulations of what type of cars they can make and regulations they have in China are way below European and American ones, and that is true. However, that doesn't mean that they can't make the cars that will meet all of the standards and regulations of both Europe and in America. And I believe that's exactly what's going to happen. I just had Sandy Munro on my show as a guest, and he is as good as it gets as far as an expert in the manufacturing, auto manufacturing industry. And his opinion that China will absolutely destroy manufacturing in the U.S. and in Europe, and everyone's going to move there because they can make perfect iPhones. They will be able to make perfect cars. I'm telling you personally, when I went there, the quality of and the speed of how everything can just happen there is amazing. Here it takes years to build a factory. Over there it can be done within under a year. Again, from digging in dirt to having a factory producing cars. So I think people will be surprised once these cars are going to be making it here. NIO, right, one of the Chinese companies that are already making electric cars, they've already went public here in the United States. And they're probably going to be moving and start selling their cars here in the next couple of years. But Byton, even though their headquarters are in China, but they have also headquarters in the United States, here in Silicon Valley, and in Germany, I believe. So it is more of a global brand with just headquarters in China. NIO is purely Chinese based, but I think they're going to do just fine as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing more of that now. And companies that we recognize as being our home country companies, they're moving all sorts of manufacturing to China. Certainly we've seen with Dyson, they're taking all their things abroad now, all their manufacturing abroad. And we're expecting a revolutionary electric vehicle from them. But we have no idea what it's going to look like yet. And it's unfortunate, it's just not going to be built here in the UK. So it's a real shame. But can I bring you back to America and ask you the kind of the general opinion of electric vehicles in America, notwithstanding Silicon Valley and the areas where we see them all over the place, you can't move for them. But your more general states in America, the opinion of them, because we're seeing a lot of reports of people, the pickup truck community blocking Tesla superchargers and damaging them. Is that another story that's being blown out of all proportion, or is that genuinely a concern over there? And are people really worried about changing from their combustion engines?
I don't think people are worried per se, and I don't think people have accepted it yet. But I have to say, so I lived in a bubble, as I told you. I lived in a bubble in Silicon Valley for a while, where I just visited my friends and family just the other weekend, and every other car is a Tesla. It would seem. I live in Sacramento, which is still California, but this is not a rich town. This is a government town. This is a capital. So I see way less electric cars. The attitude here is different. Most people do drive those big gas guzzler trucks here, but the attitude is changing, right? People are not ready yet to start maybe putting their money into this, but the attitude is changing. Especially, Rivian just came out with an amazing electric truck concept with amazing technology behind it, and as people are watching it and as the prices are coming down and as they're seeing these cars in the hands of their friends and so forth, they're seeing charging stations, you know, the tide is turning, but slowly. Don't forget, the electric car sales are still only about 1 to 2%, I think, both here and over there in Europe. Though I think you guys are a little bit more ahead of us. And don't forget, distances here are a little bit bigger than in Europe, actually, in some cases by far. So the range, which is a concern in long distance charging infrastructure, matters more here, and they're not obviously as advanced as we would want it to be. But tide is definitely turning slowly, slowly. Let me put it this way: no one's laughing at electric cars anymore. But yes, I know you mentioned the trucks block. It's isolated incidents, and it's, to be honest with you, it's most likely because of jealousy, and that means that they're sensing that this is much better, and this is coming. It is coming to get them in the ways they won't probably expect. They'll get into electric truck one day and go like, oh my God, I must have it. I hate to admit this, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you mentioned about the sales figures there. I think there are places in Europe that the sales are incredible. So Norway, for example, the grants that are available to the citizens in Norway are far better than anything that we see certainly here in the UK. And it's not just grants; it's about being able to use bus lanes and all sorts of other things. That clearly drives sales of EVs, and they're showing they over 50% now of all their car sales are plug-in vehicles of some description. Now, I know that there's some unrest at the moment in America, and Trump is trying to force a bill through where he's going to certainly cut, if not completely take away, the subsidies or the grants, and that's just part of a whole package to do with the environment and green energy. What's your view on that? Does that look like that's something that's going to happen?
Well, so it's definitely not going to happen. As you know, here, we have Congress with two houses. Now, one house is controlled by Republicans and another house is controlled by Democrats. There is no way in hell Democrats will let this happen because they've always been pro-environment. And so the $7,500 tax rebate will definitely stay for the next couple of years. And by the way, I don't think people know that originally this tax credit was signed by George W. Bush, who was a Republican president. So it wasn't a Democratic idea to do this. This was to help businesses. This was to help the new technology and the industry to develop. So this is a very Republican thing to do. So that's one thing. Now, the problem we're having here is, unfortunately, is that the way they set up this bill is that, you get the $7,500 tax credit, but only up to that particular manufacturer has sold 200,000 electric cars. Now, and then after that, they don't just take it away, they kind of phase it out over next year. And the phase out already started for Tesla. Chevy is starting, I believe, at the end of this month, and then Nissan is next. But what essentially happens now is that the pioneers, the companies that took a chance on electric technology, are essentially going to be punished because their future customers are not going to be able to get that tax credit, or it will be reduced. But the companies who have been picking their nose and been kind of scared, like Toyota and Honda, once they come up with electric cars, they will be, given essentially $7,500 per car advantage. So there are bills that have been introduced, and I had for example, Congressman Welch was a guest on my show, I believe, back in July. He's one of the authors of those bills where they want to change this, where it doesn't phase out after a certain number of cars that a manufacturer sells. It's the same for everybody, and you have a certain amount of years to come up with electric cars and start selling them until it starts phasing out for everybody. Again, split Congress, so I don't know if either type of legislature would pass. We'll see who the next president is in a couple of years and who controls the Congress. And then we're going to go from there. But it is a bit flawed, and Tesla and Nissan and Chevy, they they created an alliance to lobby for this bill, of course, because they're the ones to suffer first. But I wouldn't expect too many changes right now. If anything, the changes will happen on the state level. Like here in California, we get rebates for electric cars in addition to the tax incentives from the federal government. So we'll see.
Yeah, we're all very different, and yet we're we are very similar, and certainly our government are making the right noises. They're saying they're very pro helping the electric vehicles, helping the economy to grow in that area, but they're not really putting their money where their mouth is. And yeah, you do wonder just how much certainly oil industry and everything else, without getting too political, are involved, and you wonder where that's going to lead us.
Well, let me actually interject here, because there is one country that actually is leading the way within their own economy and in the world, and that's China. And this is why we're talking about it so much. Yeah. Their government is 100% for this. All of their new regulations, all of their new incentives for customers and automakers are absolutely skyrocketing the adoption of electric car. That's why you see so many electric cars being sold there. That's why you see so many cars are going to be made there, including Tesla. Their factory is going to be opening at the end of the year, at least partially. So China is actually not kidding around. It's the rest of us, the world, is actually not probably going as fast as we could, obviously due to politics, and both of our countries have it very complicated right now. But China is, because there's one party, one strategy, and once they realize that they can't breathe right in their main cities, they realize that this is the next natural step for them, and they're definitely kicking butt right now, and they will probably continue doing so and become the main leaders in the electric car revolution in the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's any doubt, the model there in China and in Norway, it just goes to show you incentivize and you support it in the correct ways, it explodes. And there's no doubt about it. Well, Alex, it's been really interesting talking to you. And I love hearing the differences. It's so interesting that we are so similar, and yet in many ways we're so different. But well, thank you for coming onto the channel today, and thank you for your channel. I've watched it for a very long time, and watched it grow. And you deserve everything you're getting now. That it just seems to have exploded recently. And so thank you ever so much for that, and good luck for the future with it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and we're gonna take this conversation now onto my channel. I'll continue this there, and I hope we have another good one. So I'm looking forward to that.
Brilliant. Alex, thank you ever so much for your time. And let's move over channels, and I'll see you in a moment.
All right.
So there we go. That's part one done. And I think you'll agree, Alex is he's a really interesting person to talk to. A wealth of knowledge about electric vehicles, and obviously really specialist when it comes to America. And he's got a real interest in China, and a personal interest as well that I found out today. So thank you to Alex, and thank you for watching part one. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, remember to like and share. If you're not doing so already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll put a link below so that you can find the video on Alex's channel very, very, very soon. So until next time, you take care, and I'll see you soon.